Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all good. Today I've got a very exciting guest. I'm super excited for this one. I'm joined by an absolute legend of the game, Kate Longhurst. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. How are you doing?
Yeah, no problem. I'm good, thank you. I've come back from training, so I'm feeling good. I'm ready to
Yeah,
rest for the rest of the
yeah, a
night.
bit tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought we could start off a bit by talking about your journey, sort of growing up as well. Before you started playing, like what sort of football players did you look up to? I know the women's game it's grown a lot now, but did you ever look up to any women's football players?
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of football that I
Mm,
got to watch when I was younger with women's football. But the games that I did get to see were like FA Cup finals on TV, or if my mum and dad had spotted that there was a
yeah.
game that I could go to or something. So for me, it was like Farrah Williams and Kelly Smith. I think they were two of the players that I sort of looked to. They were two of the better players for the England women's team, and also for club football as well. They were always the ones that sort of stood out. So for me, they were the two that I sort of took more
Hmm.
notice of.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think, like you said, with Kelly Smith and Farrell Williams, they've always been, quite well known in the women's game for inspiring, a lot of people. And I think it's great as well now that if you asked, people, whether that's women or guys, who they look up to in the women's game, there's so many you can pick from. And I think that's so nice to see how it's grown. And I wanted to start off by talking a bit about your time at Chelsea because you did come the runners up in the FA Cup. And I wanted you to just say what you thought about how you reflect on your time at Chelsea.
It was pretty short, to be honest.
Mm,
I think I was there maybe two seasons, 1.5 seasons. It was sort of before it became professional. It was semi-professional when I was there, and Matt Beard was there, and that was the first time that I got to work with him. And yeah, we had a good team, but we weren't. I mean, look at Chelsea now; it's a
yeah,
complete world away. The facilities that we had, even though we trained at the men's training ground, there wasn't a changing room for us. It was training on an Astro pitch. It was getting in at night, and you'd do full
yeah,
day work, go there at night, and then go back home. So it's a complete world away from what it is now. But it certainly kind of helped me. It was my first step into what
yeah.
was the top league of football, and getting to an FA Cup final when we weren't the favourites, when we played Arsenal in the
Mm,
semi-final. At the time, that was probably
yeah.
like the biggest moment for me, getting to an FA Cup final. Unfortunately, obviously, we lost on penalties, but no, it's fond memories. It was a good start for me, I think, into professional women's football as it was starting.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, Chelsea, like you said, I mean, they've always been quite good, and I mean, now as well, they're very good in the
Yeah.
league, and it's sort of great to see sort of how far as a club they've gone. And I also wanted to speak a bit about Liverpool because obviously now they're doing very good, in the WSL, and you did spend time with them. You won two WSL titles there, and how did you sort of reflect on your time there as well?
Yeah, I loved my time at
Mm,
Liverpool. I think I spent 5 years there, so it was a good chunk of my career that I got to spend there. I mean, some of the players that we had in the Liverpool team, it's a shame really that they then took a backward step. I
mm,
think a lot of us left at the same time. I think 10 players left at the same time I left, and they had to kind of rebuild again. So it was a bit of a shame. I think the players that they recruited were maybe not as experienced, or just sort of starting from scratch again. And obviously they got relegated. But in terms of my time there, I absolutely loved it. That was the first time I got to play professionally as well, and that was the reason I went there, to have that opportunity. And again, it's a lot has changed since then. I think if you look at kind of what we had there at that time to what is accessible now for
mm,
women's teams, I mean, I'm at Nottingham Forest, and I probably have
mm.
better facilities and um, get more sort of given to me and done for me at Nottingham Forest than I did when I was at Liverpool. So it's certainly, everything's progressing as it goes on. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a shame that the club sort of had to take a step back. But it's good to see
Mm.
them building again now, being competitive in every game. I think they're trying to establish themselves in the top four. It might be a bit difficult this season. I think Man United have started well
Yeah.
as well, but it's good for them to be there or thereabouts because it's a huge club to be at.
Yeah, I think Liverpool, like you said, definitely in the last few seasons, obviously coming back into WSL. I mean, it's getting competitive, like you said, even for the top four spot, it's always quite tough because obviously Tottenham as well have been getting better and United, and it's always so hard to sort of, get top four or whether you're winning the league as well. It's so competitive, which I think is amazing for women's football. And I know you mentioned as well about the facilities in women's football, and I know sort of every club will have it differently. I mean, I think Arsenal have been quite good, to be honest with you, about sort of those sort of things. But I wanted to speak a bit about the women's football as well because we have seen a lot of positives, which I'll come on to, but what changes do you think should be made, whether that's for teams in the Championship, in the WSL, or just for women who want to play football?
Oh, well, that's a big question. I think for me, it's sort of you have to almost not run before you can walk.
Mm,
I think we've seen such a growth in women's football and,
mm,
and where it's at, but we also have to remember that you can't just throw millions at it and then think it's sustainable. I
yeah,
think look at what Arsenal are doing at the moment in terms of they're getting bigger crowds at the Emirates, playing all their home games there. It makes a huge difference, but not every club can just do that. I think it's taken
yeah,
Arsenal years and years of growth to kind of get there. So that's not going to be the same for every club. And I think that's a key part of sort of making sure that teams are sustainable rather than we can't see teams keep folding. I think with Reading, they tried to throw a bit of money at it. You look what's happened to them
mm,
now. For me, that's probably the biggest challenge within women's football is that we have to almost like allow teams to progress at their own level. It's great with all the new sponsorship and
yeah,
more fans coming through the gates. I think, if you probably look by the end of the season, it might be the highest attendances across the board that we've ever had in women's football, which is great. But I think there's still a big difference between WSL and Championship.
yeah,
I played in the Championship for the first time last season,
mm,
and there is still a big gap there. But what I will say is that the more players that come into WSL from abroad and things like that, then the Championship will keep getting stronger as well. And I think that's what we want, two competitive leagues. I think the leagues below will then catch up again, but there are huge differences, and it's important for teams to recruit properly if they are getting promoted. And I want to see teams be competitive. And
mm.
unfortunately, I don't think every team is kind of doing that right now. So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think you make a good point as well about attendances as well, because I know when Arsenal women were starting to play at the Emirates, we had like a Champions League game and we managed to get 7,000, and obviously that is a lot, but we should probably expect more. And now we're at that stage where we're able to get 20,000, 30,000, or even more, and I think that's obviously amazing. And I think for me, as looking like an outsider, I think it'd be really nice to see whether that's at Anfield or at Old Trafford to see them sort of get good attendances as well. Because I know in the Championship, I think they deserve that too, and I really hope it does continue. But like you said, I think every team sort of at their own pace to see sort of the improvements of the attendances, and I think the facilities as well is important because I just think it should be quite equal opportunities because you wouldn't really see the men have bad facilities, or they wouldn't go through what women sort of go through. So I think that's obviously so important for the future of women, who want, if girls want to play football, I think it's so important they have those opportunities as well. But as we mentioned before, we are seeing, a lot of growth in women's football. Obviously, I think the Euros was a massive thing for women's football. Do you think that was one of the big reasons why it kind of exploded the way it did?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible what the Lionesses did
Yeah.
and how they achieved it, and it helped that it was held in England because I think if that had happened in a tournament not in England,
Mm,
one, we potentially might not have won it because the crowds were crazy and, getting behind the team. But also, I think it would have almost just been like, oh, they won that. And then because no one experienced it within the stadiums, then maybe they wouldn't then think, oh, I'm going to go and now watch the
yeah.
Lionesses. And I think you look, a lot of them have had consistent sellouts of Wembley or high attendances at Wembley. But also now I feel like there's another drop off, and it's
Mm,
it's kind of how do you get that back up? And it's not about just saying, oh, the attendances aren't the be all and end all.
yeah.
They never are, but I think we still have to keep working towards how do we keep people coming back, and unfortunately you can't always win. So everyone
Yeah,
loves supporting a winning team, but you
yeah,
can't always win. But the Euros certainly helped in terms of getting, I think, more people on board and actually enjoying what they saw, and not just like, oh, it's just women playing football, or
yeah,
oh, it's different to men's football. Yeah, it is different because we're built differently, and
yeah,
we're maybe it's not the exact same product, but it can still be a really good product, and you've
yeah.
just got to watch it for what it is.
Yeah, I think with like the Euros, I think for me, I didn't expect us to win it, but obviously I thought we would go quite far in it. It was sort of nice to see us get to that final, and for people that might not usually watch women's football, got really interested in it, and I think it's obviously really nice, and it's sort of nice to see players that were so good before that didn't really get that recognition because I think as well as an example, Leah Williamson's been obviously amazing at Arsenal for such a long time, and when she was a captain at England, you could really see the support she got and recognition from all those players. And I think as well that definitely helped because I think fans started to follow, whether that's Mary Earps at United at the time or Ella Toone at United. And I think it was sort of nice to see that support there as well going to WSL. So, yeah, I definitely think it will continue to grow. I mean, we did get to World Cup final as well, and we had a few injuries in that time. And I think the support there was still so much there. And I think that's obviously so important to still carry on. And I think it's just amazing what the Lionesses are doing. But I wanted to go back to ask you a bit about your time at West Ham because I know obviously you love West Ham, you support West Ham, and what did it feel like to play for the club that you supported growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly different because
Mm,
obviously it was the men's team that I supported, and
yeah,
West Ham comes under the whole thing. Like, I support West Ham as a club, um, so it was slightly different. I think I was more nervous if ever I bumped into the men's team or did appearances with them. I
yeah,
was like, oh no, like this is me being a kid, me being a fan. I was still sort of like a fan in that environment, but I think I got more used to it as
yes,
it became normal. But yeah, I think there was an immense sense of pride. I think for my family being West Ham fans, like, just getting to watch me wear the shirt, just putting the shirt on every day at training, just being part of a positive environment, to see the West Ham women team become professional. That was far away a few years ago. West Ham were playing, I don't know, fourth, fifth tier football.
yeah,
So for them to kind of bring a professional club,
yeah,
and be able to play for it, I never thought it was something that was possible.
yeah.
So yeah, it was a great amount of pride.
Yeah, I think it's always quite nice when you get to do that, but I think as well it must be sort of hard when you sort of support a team. You don't really want to make mistakes for the club, and you want to always do your best. But yeah, I absolutely love that. I love your time at West Ham. I think it's amazing, and obviously, you did make a big decision to leave West Ham. How kind of hard was that to make that decision to leave?
To be honest, it was a bit of a both way decision. I wasn't playing as much as I
Yeah,
wanted, in my last season there. I also didn't think the club were going to go in the right direction. I didn't think they were
mm,
backing the players as much as they should. There was always a lot of
yeah,
turnover of players. I absolutely loved my time there, and I would have done anything for the club. But for me, that there just wasn't enough ambition shown,
yeah,
which was really disappointing. And when we tried to address it, it was always sort of shot down. And being a West Ham fan and wanting the best for the club, for them to progress, you see where they are in the league at the moment, and I think that's a reflection on probably a few years of like not putting everything into it as much as other teams have. Um,
yeah,
and it's not necessarily just on coaches or just on players or just on the board. I think it's a whole multitude of things.
yeah,
Um, but for me, it just felt like the right time. I'd already made the decision, and then had a chat with my manager anyway. And it wasn't about, oh, I'm going to leave. It was just, I think it was just like almost like the not the perfect ending, but it just
yeah,
sort of became like, okay, I want to still play. Football has always been
yeah.
my number one priority of wanting game time, and if I'm not going to get as much as I want, then maybe I need to look elsewhere.
Yeah, I definitely think getting playing time is so important, and obviously now you're at Nottingham Forest, and the exciting chapter for you, a fresh start. How have you found it, and what kind of made you sort of like Nottingham Forest to go there?
I'll be honest, I think the ambition, I
Yeah,
wouldn't have gone to any other tier 3 team, I just wouldn't have done that, but they have ambition, they've got big plans for what they
yeah,
wanna do. You can see the men's side as well, we're really doing well at the moment as well, but I think for the women's side, we're doing really well. You know, there's big differences within the league, unfortunately, and,
yeah,
you know, that's kind of been a bit of a struggle in a way that it's, you know, some teams it's almost not fair, and I don't mean that in a patronising way,
mm,
but it's just where we're at. We're training every day, and you know we're a professional team, and there's some teams that are part time in the league,
yeah,
so that's difficult. But the whole reason I went there was to be at the start of something. You know, I'm
yeah,
coming towards the end of my career, and I just thought if I can have a bit of experience, that's what Carly sort of wanted
yeah,
to bring me in for, having a little bit of experience, helping some of the younger players. And yeah, being the start of something, it was quite exciting, something new, rather than just sort of staying in the championship and maybe being mid-table and nothing to fight for. It's kind of like a fresh challenge and something different that I haven't
yeah.
haven't had yet.
Yeah, I think, like you said, with Nottingham Forest, both like the men are doing very good, and I think that sort of follows through to the women having both teams doing good. But for you throughout the season, what goals would you say you have? Would you say it's more just getting those minutes and playing, or would you want to score
No,
more?
no, for me, I mean, you know, I said I want to play, but also,
Yeah,
you know, if I'm not playing well, I don't deserve to play. It's not. I've
yeah,
never been demanding to play. But for me, the main aim has to be promotion.
yeah,
You know, that's what we've set out for. That's the reason I've went there. Um, so yeah, for me, it's not so much personal aims. It's just making sure that the club goes up. We've got a lot of really talented players in the team, some really good young players that should be playing at a higher level. And I don't want to see them stuck in that league. And you know, it's not easy to get a move. And I also don't want the players to go and play for another club. I want them to be at Forest. And you know, there's too many players that are too good for that level. And again, I don't mean that in any type of way, but
yeah.
there's some really promising players at Forest. And yeah, my main aim has to be to try and help the team go up.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that obviously, even though yourself you want to do well, but most importantly, you want to help the team get better and get that promotion. I think that's so, so special. And I wanted to thank you so much today for coming on. I've really enjoyed this. It's been nice to sort of get to know your journey, and hopefully those that watch this will get to know you a bit better. I've been really enjoyed having you on today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
very welcome anytime. But yeah, to those that will watch us back, I hope you have enjoyed this. And yeah, I will see you all very soon.